What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another exciting episode. Today we're going to be doing a video that I thought I did before, but nothing this general. I've done this type of video before for very specific times of the year, like summer and winter, but today we're going to do a top 5 favorite swim baits of all time. So if you guys are ready, let's get right into today's video. So I've been fishing swim baits for close to a decade, if not a decade now at this point, and I've fished maybe close to 100 different swim baits, and throughout the years of fishing them, I've just really been in tune with a very few select baits where time and time again, if I pick up this certain swim bait, I'm gonna have the most amount of confidence and I have had the most amount of bites on these specific swim baits. So throughout the years, I've kind of just had this huge broad range of swim baits, and I've just kind of condensed it down to the ones that I really feel like fit my style of fishing and has just gotten bit for me in the past consistently. And when you're not catching them, which is 99% of the time, you gotta enjoy the bait and have fun fishing it. So today we're gonna go over my favorite swim baits of all time. So nothing in super particular order except for this first one that we're gonna look at, which is my all-time favorite swim bait, and that is the Hinkle Trout. This has been a bait that I've been fishing since 2015, and ever since seeing this bait way back in the day, I thought that this thing was just like the coolest swim bait ever. Luckily enough for me, I live out in Arizona where we do get to have trout eaters, and seeing this bait, the detail of it, the profile, the size of it, everything about this bait, to that young Jeffrey who was 18, I just thought that this bait was just the coolest swim bait ever made. And a part of me still thinks that. I mean, it's a fish catching bait. I've caught fish in the summertime on it. I've caught fish where they don't even see trout on it. Like, it just gets bit. I love the size of it, the detail, just everything about this bait is just super badass, and I've caught tons and tons of fish on this bait. Now, before I had that Hinkle Trout, my favorite bait at the time was just the classic, the Slide Swimmer 250. Now, this was really the first big glide bait that I had gotten my hands on while fishing some of the urban spots, and I was just blown away by the fishability of the bait and the drawing power and just its ability to get bites. I mean, the first year of throwing the Slide Swimmer at my local urban spots, my buddy David, he caught a 9-pounder out of a pond where I'm like, wow, I didn't expect there to be that big of a fish out of, and he caught it on a Slide Swimmer. So back then, the Slide Swimmer was just basically impossible to beat. It wasn't until I got that Hinkle Trout where I started fishing the Hinkle way more than I did the 250, and I kind of just, was on and off with the 250 because I just loved that Hinkle Trout so much. And back then, the 250 was the hottest bait on the market, so everybody and their grandmothers was throwing it. So it kind of lost its touch or magic to me over time, but it's still one of my favorites of all time. It's just such a classic swim bait. When I first started fishing our main bodies of water, the main lakes that we were fishing out here, I started off with the glide, and it was very exciting. But I had never really dived that much into the soft bait thing, and it wasn't until I picked up this guy, the 10-inch Magdraft by Megabass, where I finally started to understand, like, wow, this is how I should be fishing a soft bait. Sometimes the soft bait was just getting bites way more than a glide bait was, and this was really the bait that taught me, how to fish deeper than 10 feet of water, fishing it in rocks or just down deep in 20, 30 plus feet of water. This bait really made me become a much better fisherman overall. And at the time, I remember, I think we went maybe close to 6 months just straight of fishing this bait, and they were just absolutely crushing it. And I didn't even pick up that Hinkle Trout. I didn't pick up a 250. I didn't pick up anything else but the 10-inch Magdraft, and it just got smashed for us. I mean, I fished it everywhere. I fished it in grass, rocks, docks. I fished it high, fished it low, and it just was just an amazing bait at the time. And I'm really, really glad that I was able to, become a better fisherman by fishing a soft bait and finding a soft bait that really worked for my for my fishing back then. So the 10-inch Magdraft by Magdraft, definitely one of my favorites of all time. Even though I don't really fish it that much anymore, it still holds a very, very special place in my heart. So 10-inch Magdraft. Now, going back to the glides, one that, you know, I've been fishing for, again, maybe close to 8 years now, maybe a little bit longer than that, and that is the high power swim baits, the gliding gizzard shad. More specifically, the old 9-inch version. As you guys can see, this is a much older model than the ones that they have now, especially if I turn it to this side where it's just completely destroyed and chipped, the tail's all messed up. This one has been put through the ringer. The high power swim baits gliding gizzard, it was a really, really fun bait for us because when we were fishing it and where it really shined was in the post spawns in summer months, where they wanted a bait really, really fast and they were really focused on eating shad. With this bait, literally what you would do is just fire it out wherever it was. Maybe it was down a bluff wall or down a big flat or something like that. And you work it really, really fast, faster than a Hinkle trout or like a 250. And the way that this thing flashed and moved, it really just drove the fish crazy. And so this was such a super fun bait to fish. I haven't really been on a bite like that in quite a few years, so this thing hasn't really had that much play in my arsenal, but I know if I pick it up and I fish it again, I'll probably get bites. I mean, it's just such a badass bait, and I've owned quite a few, and I've definitely lost quite a few of these, but overall, the high power swim baits, the gliding gizzard shad, is just such an awesome bait. If you guys can get your hands on one, I definitely recommend it, especially if you are fishing around gizzard shad eaters. I mean, it's got such a perfect profile of a gizzard shad, and you get to fish it much faster than a traditional glide. And then the last bait is, of course, the DRT, more specifically the Clash 9. This has been an amazing bait for me, and I've been fishing it for about 5 years, since 2017. And ever since picking up this bait, I just fell in love with the way that you can fish it. Now, I mostly fish my K9s as a glide. I know guys will fish them as, you know, dead walking abilities or crank it down, and there's a lot of different ways you can fish this bait. But when it came to a glide bait, you know, I had been fishing, you know, the slide swimmer 250 in that smaller range that would be worked a little bit on the faster side and up top. But I noticed that with the K9, it just swam a little more erratic than that 250 did, where the 250 is a very fluid glide, and it's like long kind of glides out. This one, you can fish so much more erratically, and I always felt like this was able to get those fish to react to the bait more than that 250, especially after the fish were seeing the 250 a lot. Seeing that this bait could be fished more erratic, a little bit faster, but still be in very much control of what the bait's doing. I mean, we were absolutely crushing fish on this bait for many, many years, and I'm still crushing fish on this bait. I mean, it's a super awesome bait. I've loved it ever since I've got it, and it will always be in my arsenal ready to go. It's just such a fun bait to fish, especially when they're eating that erratic glide. So the DRT Clash 9 is the number 5. Now, just a few quick, how's it going? Now, just a few quick honorable mentions that I've had recently. This guy right here, the Hog Hunter Magnum. Now, I have fished the original Batesmith Magnum back in the day, and it never really worked for me in my style of fishing. The 10-inch Magdraft was what really got me a lot of bites instead of the Magnum. Now, it could have been a thing of pressure because back then everybody was fishing a Magnum, and so if you throw something a little bit different, the fish might have bit it a little bit better. As of recently, you know, since Hog Hunter, you know, kind of redid the Magnum, I really like this new version a lot. It's a lot more durable. It gets a lot of bites for me recently. And the reason why I switched from fishing the Magdraft back to the Magnum is because we had a big fish kill out here locally, and a lot of guys stopped throwing swim baits, and so the fish weren't seeing these as much as they were before. So, and I kind of wanted to go the most realistic, most natural swimming bait possible. just so I can hopefully get a bigger bite or more bites. And I mean, this past couple of seasons fishing the Magnum, it has been my #1 soft bait. It's just such a badass bait. My first double digit came on a Magnum, and I caught quite a few other 8 to 9 pounders on this bait last season. So Magnum by Hog Hunter, absolutely one of my favorites now, kind of working its way into the arsenal. Another one that a lot of guys have been seeing me fish recently, and when I say recently, probably like the past 3 years or so, that I absolutely love on one specific body of water that we have out here, and that is the Magdraft 178. This little guy is just super, super fun to fish, and the lake that I fish locally, it's a really fun lake to fish during, post-spawn, into summer, and it's just a really fun lake just to go and have fun. It's pretty close. It's only like 35-40 minutes away, and there's a ton of fish, and they absolutely destroy this 7-inch size bait. And I feel like with the Magdraft 178, a lot of guys aren't fishing it, but I can fish it pretty fast. It looks very much like a jerkbait in the water, and the fish just absolutely crush it. And so having a bait of this size that I can fish pretty fast during those months has just been an absolute blessing. So the Magdraft 178 is definitely an honorable mention for one of my favorites. And then the last honorable mention is going to be kind of like a 3-way tie, but that falls all under the same umbrella. That is the Working Class Zero Battle Shads or Citizens, either ones. All like the 7.5 Battle Shad, 9.0 Battle Shad, or even like the Citizen 7. These baits have been really, really fun to fish throughout the few years that I've been fishing them. And they're so versatile, and you can fish them anywhere. And when the fish are on the bottom and they're on shad, or they really want that shad profile instead of, a trout bait like the Magnum, I mean, it's such a fun bait to fish. I mean, I fished these baits from the lakes to the urban spots. Both the Citizens and the Battle Shads equally get bit for me, and I just love them. I mean, the new model ones that Mike have been making with the head keener harness, dude, they're indestructible. I mean, you can get so many bites and so many fish on just one bait now. The durability is awesome, and the best part about these baits is that I can fish them and throw them anywhere. And when I mean anywhere, I mean if I'm fishing an urban spot where I know there's a bunch of gnarly stuff, fishing line, braid, hooks, and bubblers and stuff like that, I could throw a 7.5 Battle Shad or a Citizen, and I'm not worried about losing it because it'll just come through whatever's down there. And I won't have to worry about, like, in my head, like, wow, I'm gonna go pond fishing, and all the local urban spots, they have a bunch of trash and garbage in the water that guys will hang up baits on and lose. And so having the ability to fish swim baits in areas that you really wouldn't want to risk any other bait fishing in, the Battle Shads and Citizens, just there's really nothing like it. I mean, the baits are just absolutely killer. So those are my top 5-ish swim baits. I think we did 8 there. So over all the years, these are still baits that I have in my arsenal. If I like a bait and I find that it works really well for me, I grab as many as I can in that specific bait so I can have backups. I don't have a very deep set of swim baits just because there's so many swim baits now on the market. Some of them are proven, some of them aren't, and I've just always just gone in my mind like, what has worked for me in the past, what's gonna keep working for me in the future, and what's just fun to fish right now in the present. So those are the swim baits that I still fish today, and it kind of just depends on where I'm fishing or what the fish behavior is like or the forage that they want to feed on. But those are my favorite swim baits of all time. Let me know what your guys' favorite swim baits are with a comment down below. And other than that, thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, go out there and chase your dreams.